Hey everyone, welcome back. Surprise! Did you miss me? Don't worry, I'm not leaving Warframe at all. We've just been really busy planning stuff for the channel in the future, as well as still streaming on Twitch. I've been also riding that Lost Ark train, but I know why you clicked this video. For more Warframe content, so that's what I'll give you. That 1 week off, I guess you could say, was a mini vacation. From today onwards, we'll be back to our regularly scheduled uploads. Yes, we're back. So what's today's video about? We're on final release for the Valentine's update that dropped literally a week ago. I also wanted to let the dust settle due to all the bugs that came with it, namely condition overload related bugs and also where the augments would end up. CO is fixed for melee, but still bugged on guns, and multi-shot for gun CO is still ridiculously OP. We know now that the augments were left mostly untouched, except Grendel's 40 enemy cap on his suck now, completely ruining the fun of what you could do with his new augments, in my opinion. Yareli's Augment had the tiniest tweak. The damage ramping was changed from 8 to 10%. The thrown blades can now also build damage scaling, and it now costs 15 energy to throw instead of 0. Honestly, that's a buff in my eyes, because being able to throw discs, even with 0 energy, was kinda broken. You can still do that on Merlina, but that has its own set of problems. Imagine that on Disruption though, with energy drain conduits. You wouldn't even need a weapon, just Spammer 3 instead. And yes, that's exactly what we're doing today, Disruption, with their Surging Blades, on Steel Path. We know it works on survival due to the sheer amount of enemy spawns easily powering up her Aquablade Augment to ridiculous numbers. But can it still work in Disruption with reduced enemy spawns and elite mobs that we need to kill on a timer? How about in solo that has reduced spawns? It's doable. Even on Steel Path, I can still get decent kills off on Demolysts, but it pales in comparison to the firepower it gets in survival. For one, it doesn't reach the 100k to 200k raw damage values on the augment like you normally would. This is purely due to the lack of enemy spawns. Another problem is that Demolysts have an innate damage reduction value that has nothing to do with armor. This DR applies twice, or squared for dots, meaning dot values are drastically reduced. However, luckily Surging Blade is still strong enough that I can still work this way. But it isn't the powerhouse we saw in survival anymore. There is one way to help this a little bit, so that's what we will lead into. The fastest way to build damage on our augment is being in a cluster of enemies. While the Thrown Glaive does build damage, damage only scales on direct hits, and not the slash dots. So that single hit with the Thrown Glaive that costs energy to throw, it pales in comparison to the ring that orbits around you and hits 3 times per second, as it's every half second but staggered enemies cannot get hit. And this means grouping enemies together is POG and gives really good scaling. Also, the augment scales with the ability damage value listed in the HUD. This means increasing the actual damage of the blades with Viral, and Roar will not affect how fast the augment ramps up. It does affect the actual damage of the blades and slash though, so Viral and Roar are still extremely important. It just means there's no way to cheese the damage ramping except ability strength. So grouping will be extremely important. Roar does double dip on this ability, boosting both the initial hit and the resulting slash procs. It also isn't considered a weapon, so anything that would work for a pseudo exalted will not work here, except Roar. But this includes stuff like Vigorous Swap, Arcane Arachne, Arcane Avenger, and any other similar buffs or Shock Trooper will not work. So let's take a look at this Mimi setup then. I'll do Yareli first. This is what she looks like. Now, what I want to mention is that Energize is extremely important on this build. You will be killing Demolysts with your Surging Blades, which require energy to throw. Without energy, they can't throw. Also keep in mind this build is weak to energy drain conduit effects, but hey, it was for the memes and fun, right? The other arcane can be whatever you want. So I chose Arcane Velocity just so that I can shoot my Epitaph even faster, which also means Prime Sure-Footed. Brief Respite is there so that literally any ability cast will refill our shields to full without needing any auger mods. The exception is her one, Sea Snares, but it only takes 2 casts to top out. This build tries to squeeze as much duration and strength out as possible while still keeping survivability decent. We also have Primed Flow and Equilibrium to counter Blind Rage's efficiency penalty, as throwing your blades can start getting expensive at 23.25 energy a pop. Combine this with using Sea Snares to shield gate at 77.5 energy per double cast. Resetting your 2 and 3 is needed early to get ready for Demolysts, and you can end up draining a lot more energy than you think. although I would consider slotting a natural talent somewhere on this build too, since that is strictly a DPS increase, as it will let you throw your glaives much faster. Rolling Guard is extremely important because unlike Vazarin or other iframe methods, it also has a status cleanse to get rid of those pesky heat, electric, or slash dots on you that would otherwise last past your iframes, and nuke your shields immediately again. Toxin will still kill you though, so be careful about that as it will completely bypass shields. Narrow-minded because range isn't that important on the setup, even for Sea Snare, since it is only for shield regen. I'll get into that later on why you don't need range on R1 at all. Your Surging Blade buff only resets when it expires, which is why duration is so important for you to ramp up enough damage for Demolysts. Transient Fortitude is self-explanatory, with only a minor duration penalty and prime continuity. Then, the augments, obviously. You'll notice we didn't have a CC ability on our kit today, and that I subsumed to Roar over Merlina. This is because you can't use Helminths while on her, and doing Disruption on Merlina is super finicky. It just isn't worth it. The one gimmick it does offer is no cost for using Surging Blades though while you're on her, so maybe that is something to consider if you don't want to worry about energy drain conduits. Regardless, you can subsume off either Meru or her 4 since we have no range. I talked about Epitaph. This is your main CC today since her kit lacks it. This is one half of what will keep you alive. It's a radiation viral epitaph primer to make enemies attack each other and also prime the demo. Higher fire rate with lethal torn and the arcane velocity I had on her. But basically, this thing procs blast, viral, radiation, and cold, and in a 13.28 meter radius since I slotted primed fulmination on it. That is an extremely important mod because the more enemies you CC, the better chance you have of surviving. This is absolutely essential for keeping enemies off your back, and because of how much you're shooting it, I slotted pistol ammo mutation so that your kills can regenerate your most important weapon in your loadout, dexterity, so you can holster speed faster. That is its only purpose, though you won't be using a primary weapon much. Augur Seeker gives us that single augur bonus, which isn't really needed, but more status duration, which is needed and important for viral on damage buffing and radiation for CCing. The primary weapon I brought this time is a flux rifle, but honestly it doesn't really matter what you bring here as it is a throwaway slot on the loadouts, but if you want something that's actually good, you could bring say Convectrix or even a Phage now because of how Guncio is working with multi-shots if you want to. Vastilok is important for armor stripping the demo as it will require multiple Aqua Blade throws to kill. Multiple throws means there's a lot of alpha damage being mitigated by armor. Slash shots will bypass armor completely, but making this alpha damage do more than a tickle will reduce the amount of health Slash has to tick through. Pile on attack speed, shattering impact, and viral for good measure. I have life strike on this loadout too to deal with chip damage as I have no other way to heal. Yes, we don't have healing arcanes on our operator this time. I'm running both Anomaly and Lockdown for ultimate CC. Anomaly to pull enemies in to build Surging Blades ramping faster, and Lockdown as their second source of CC besides Epitaph spam. Lockdown will also be essential for keeping Demolysts in place for our DPS rotation to kill them. Panzer is our companion on a stock viral quills and double synth setup. This is important because viral quills will spread throughout the room and count as pet assists on anything it touches. Pet assists will trigger synth deconstruct for 25% chance to drop health orbs on any enemy, aka the entire room. Synth Fiber lets you pick up health orbs even at full HP, which will convert into equilibrium for even more energy. Tech Assaults to dodge lethal hits on your cats, as Martyr gives you a 0.2 second health gate if you screw up, but it sacrifices your cat. Panzer Devolution for infinite cat lives, Radar, and Vacuum. Rest of the mods are filler, though Pack Leader does actually work, since you'll be healing with Vastilok also. The last part I didn't mention here though is your focus school, Unairu. This is what makes the whole build work. Why Unairu? Because the magnetic blast in the tree functions like a bullet attractor. This will keep stuff like Yareli's Surging Blade stuck inside the bubble, rotating constantly. Her blades can actually re-hit enemies without leaving their orbit. This is something many other projectiles cannot do, most notably Nadaruk. Being able to re-hit means a single throw won't pass through instantly, and instead results in multiple hits while in orbit. Suddenly the damage of a single throw multiplies by 2, 3, 4, or even 5 times. Basically, as long as it can tick before the magnetic blast expires, and it lasts quite a long time too. This essentially functions like an Eclipse modifier as each hit has a 100% chance to proc slash and every hit does the same damage as the first. Basilisk Gaze, Waybound, is also an important node that lets you void blast from further away and stay away from the nullifier pulse of the Demolysts, which can nullify your abilities, including removing all of your surging blade stacks and restarting you from 0. How to use this? When you find the Demolyst, shoot it with Epitaph to slow it down so you can armor strip it with Vastilok, then you lock down it and void blast once. Go back to frame and start throwing as many surging blades as you can while shooting your epitaph as necessary. The blades will get trapped in orbit around the Demolysts until it dies. The only caveat is that the blades are physical objects, meaning if there are obstacles or walls nearby, they will hit it in orbit and despawn, so you want to lock down to Demolysts in more open areas when possible to maximize the orbit time of the blades for more damage. You actually don't need that much damage ramping on the Augment to be able to kill Demolysts this way. 10 to 20k is more than enough in the first 5 rounds. Getting to 40k will shred them in about 3 to 4 seconds when you start throwing. Realistically, you won't get higher than about 50 or 60k, so while this is fun, it isn't something for endless. But hey, an actual functioning Yareli Surging Blades Demolist killer, right? Yes, I know you could use this on Rhino instead for a stronger roar, so if that's what you want, go do that. It'll make you do about 2.5 to 3 times more damage on Rhino for even easier Demolist kills, as roar does double dip. Therefore, peak efficiency on this setup will come from Rhino, and you also get the iframes from Iron Skin if you want. We already know now that Surging Blades absolutely shreds in survival, so I thought it was time to make a Mimi setup for Disruption, the only other endless mode I run. If this is your first time watching, feel free to leave a like or better yet subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. 79.5% of you are not subscribed. I'll try my best to get you new information out always, as soon as possible. Like I've done with covering all the new war stuff and these new augments. Stick around if you want to see interesting memes and builds on a nearly daily basis. You don't want to miss out on any of that, do you? That'll be it for this video. Thank you all for watching, and see you all next time.